were to put a optimistic time frame on when you might see biomarkers for either acute or chronic graft-host disease become FDA approved and therefore included in treatment guidelines and become full-fledged members, if you will, of clinical practice. Is this something that we're years away from, and with all the different type of biomarkers and when they slot in there, it just sounds like a terrific amount of work? Or might this ST2 biomarker, and I'm sorry, you mentioned that there was another thing that was measured, might this come into practice within a year or two?
So it's a good one. I think the reason why it's not yet in clinical practice is because there's been academic endeavor so far, right? So I think we need some help from industry. So that's the truth. The best way to have a FDA approval for a biomarker is to have it as a companion diagnosis for a treatment. So, and this is some real of the pharma. We can usually not do this at just the academic setting level. So I do believe there is a lot of interest from pharma these days, right, for biomarkers in acute and in chronic GVHD, maybe even more in chronic GVHD, although they are less advanced. So it will be important to have pharma on board, right? Because then they can claim it as a companion biomarker for their treatments. And this is probably the best way forward and what FDA prefer to, because it's actually a lot of administrative hurdle to go through the FDA approval for a biomarker, and also cost. It's usually academia cannot take on. Yeah.
So is there a treatment in the pipeline, or even one in practice now, for chronic graft-versus-host disease, for which a companion biomarker, which is to say a biomarker that would determine whether the treatment is going to be used or not, is a near-term possibility, or makes some sort of clinical logical sense from the evidence we now have?
So that's a really important question. Beyond corticosteroids, that is not interesting for pharma, right? And still the upfront treatment. There have been 2 randomized trials. They are more coming up. So at least one, right, led by Insight. And so basically JAK inhibitor have shown excellent efficacy, right? So compared to what we know. And they are interested in chronic GVHD, also in acute GVHD. By the way, they are now FDA approved for treatment for both acute GVHD and chronic GVHD. And they want to go and try to get some biomarkers in. So yes, so treatment, so Insight with the JAK inhibitors, and there are different type of JAK inhibitor. The one that has been in the randomized trial was Ruxo. And there is also another one where there is a phase 3 that will start soon, is KD 205, right? So it was KD because it was a cardamom company, but now has been bought by Sanofi because it was a startup, and they will have a phase 3 randomized trial in chronic GVHD, mostly based in Europe, but they are also interested in looking at biomarkers.